the elite no-gi submission grappling scene has a big problem right now. And stick with me, Ross of the Jiu Jitsu Oracle, for 10 or so minutes, and I'll explain to you why I think that and what I think is possible to remedy the situation. So first off, this is a quick solo pod off the back of the UFC BJJ 3 show. I could have got in touch with my regular co-host Callum, tried to find a time where we both run through the event and given some thoughts on the matches. But off the back of that show, I was relatively uninspired, and I was thinking, what could we do on a podcast that would create some interest? How could we cover this event? And I was thinking about the event and what I'd like to see be better in UFC BJJ, and then it struck me. Right? Jiu-Jitsu right now, the no-gi submission grappling scene at the top level, has a huge hole in it. And that is a hole created by the absence of Gordon Ryan and Craig Jones, by far the two biggest stars in the sport. And as I was watching UFC BJJ, and credit to Mikey Musumeci for winning his match in the main event very quickly with a leg lock, kind of how most people thought it would go. So it wasn't that exciting a match to tune in for, and then it wasn't that exciting a match to sit and watch. But I'm sure, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but like as I was watching the show, I'm sure I heard them describe Mikey as like the biggest name in the sport and the face of the sport, and I thought, that's not right, and surely that can't be right. Like, you know, so I was thinking, who are the big stars in the sport? And it's Gordon Ryan and Craig Jones, and I'm thinking to myself, well, they're not competing right now for different reasons. So then, combat sport in all its forms, or combat entertainment, is a star-driven business. If you have stars, you can get eyeballs on your product, and by getting eyeballs on your product, you can earn money. And right now, I would say there are no stars in submission grappling. Like, we need to create some more stars. These promotions, UFC, BJJ, WNO, Polaris, all out there putting on good events that I like to tune into and watch and see the jiu-jitsu that's happening, because I do jiu-jitsu and I coach jiu-jitsu. That said, in this day and age where there's competing forces such as NFL, NBA playoffs, college football, soccer, etc., it's hard to convince people to put their eyes on your product. And if you miss the window to get them to watch, so if people think, not that inspired by Mikey Musumeci against Kevin Carrasco in the main event of UFC BJJ 3, I think I'll give it a miss. Or I'll wait till tomorrow to go and watch it. These windows, like, they disappear quickly. There are stats out there that show, with WWE going to Netflix, like, if they don't get the views early, like, people aren't going back and tuning into Raw like a few days after it's happened to see what's happened. Like, the window is missed. There's just too much other stuff out there competing for eyeballs. So get into the comments and let me know, who are the big stars in jiu-jitsu right now? Or not even big stars, like, who are stars or getting towards star status? And, like, what can we do to get them in interesting, exciting matches? And who do you want to see these guys face? But I think, like, that scene, that level of competitor is pretty barren right now. And some of the guys with star potential are off doing other things. Like, you've got Rutolo's focusing on MMA, and then also, like, if they do compete, it's on one, and, like, just by the nature of that promotion, being in Asia, and then some of their events being on different broadcast platforms that aren't so easily accessible. Sometimes it's on YouTube, I think. Sometimes it's not. But yeah, like, they're not always easily visible. I'd say, like, off the top of my head, probably Nicky Rod is the biggest name right now. But again, like, how big a name is he? How much of a driving force for getting eyeballs on a product is he? Like, Nicky Rod being top of the bill relative to Gordon or Craig, I do think there's a difference there. But, like, you let me know. Like, part of this pod, part of doing the solo pod, is to have a dialogue with you guys that jump into the comments so I can like better understand what the feeling is out there. I mean, I went on Reddit after the UFC BJJ, and there wasn't that many comments. I've posted some stuff on the Jiu Jitsu Oracle. Got some feedback, but not loads. What I will say on the feedback is I have had some interesting discussions with people on Messenger, just short little conversations. But the general vibe is that UFC BJJ is quite kind of soulless, I would say. And then somebody else used the word vanilla to me. And I kind of think that's the vibe. So just on that specifically, moving away from this idea of the Gordon and Craig shaped hole, and please give me some names either that you think are stars right now or that with some promotion behind them, they can get to that level. On UFC BJJ itself, like I really don't enjoy shows in the apex, whether it's MMA or whether it's BJJ or anything else. It's just a soulless venue. There's no vibe inside it. If I was UFC BJJ, and this is not what they'll do. I mean, if you look at products through the TKO umbrella, like, you know, they will use venues like the Apex. But I would go to Austin. I would create a show with guys on it from B Team and or Simple Man, as it's now known, or New Wave / Kingsway, as it's now known, or I know the Tackets are out towards Vegas now, or in Vegas because of their affiliation to UFC BJJ and the chance to train at the Performance Institute, etc. But like they've obviously got that background with Brazilian Fight Factory out there as well. Like, get these guys on the show and just give tickets to guys from the gym and kind of create like a sporting atmosphere where you're rooting for guys from your team and create a bit of vibe around it, because ratings in other sports and entertainment, such as wrestling and such as MMA, shows that the look and feel and sound of a promotion does really matter for getting guys to tune in and stick with it. So I think getting out of the Apex, to me, makes sense in terms of the look and feel of it. I don't think they will. I think they just view this BJJ thing as a bit of content that they can have out there, and they want to have content in all forms of combat. Who's they? Well, UFC, or, you know, the overarching umbrella that UFC's part of, which is TKO. I think that's what they want. But yeah, I think the feel of the show needs to be better. As for like who's on the show, you've got Mikey Musumeci as the poster boy of UFC BJJ. Now, his opponents so far have been underwhelming, and there's this issue of like the weight class Mikey chooses to compete at makes it difficult to find opponents. Never mind the fact that if you go and sign for UFC BJJ, what does that contract commit you to doing, and do you want to do that? But let's just say that like everyone's on the table for potential opponents for Mikey. Well, Mikey's made no secret of the fact that he wants a match with Baby Shark. So I went on Flow Grappling, had a quick look at their no-gi rankings. Mikey's top of the under 135 pound division. And then Baby Shark's listed in the under 145 division. And so if Musumeci wants Baby Shark, and there's seemingly a weight class between them. Also in the under 145 division are the likes of Pato, Josh Cisneros, Fabricio Andre, Colabate, Dorian Alvarez. Like, these are much bigger names than are available at under 135. So, Mikey, I think if you want that match with Baby Shark, it's saying to me that you're willing to step up and weight a little bit. And then if you step up and weight in a little bit, you get access to much bigger names and much more exciting matches. And UFC BJJ, I would be trying to get Mikey to do that if I'm paying his wages to compete for us, you know. And guys who are at the top of their game, stepping up weight classes, like we see it all the time in like other forms of combat, MMA or boxing. Like we just saw Terence Crawford step up in weight to take on Canelo Alvarez. So I don't see why in BJJ you can't make up like a 10-pound weight difference. What's that, about 5 kilos or something? So yeah, I think UFC BJJ need to do that with Mikey, need to try and make that happen. Otherwise, they're just going to have relatively uninspired events at the top of the card. And I've been chatting with people who will watch other jiu-jitsu matches, tournaments, events in my gym. And they're like, did you watch UFC BJJ? Bear in mind, it's free on YouTube. And they're like, nah, I couldn't be bothered. Other stuff on. So, yeah, they can't just rely on Mikey and the level of star status they perceive Mikey to have to get eyes on the event. And I don't even think his level of star status is as high as maybe UFC BJJ perceive it to be. But you let me know what you think. Like, is Mikey now, with no Craig and no Gordon, the biggest star in Nogi grappling, or are there other people ahead of him already? Or if there is like a dearth and there's like really nobody there, who should it be that promotions are putting their time, effort, and money into marketing? Who do you want to see at the top of the card? Who would make you tune in to watch? So I think if you're listening to this podcast and Callum, my regular co-host, and I cover sport jiu-jitsu, obviously we want these events to be as good as they possibly can be, and we want as many eyeballs on them as possible. But I think this UFC BJJ show shows that isn't happening right now. And I was like, also watching it, and I was thinking, wow, we really need CGI 3 in 2026. Maybe the ADCC is going to be such a big event that carries the load. But I do think that coming off the back of CGI 2, like I said, I had a personal kind of hangover after watching that event. My interest level kind of dipped a bit because it was such excitement going into the event and then coming out of the event. What's happened since hasn't been that exciting, but I wanted to be. You know, I'm not having a go. This isn't designed to be a moan. It's because like I want sport jiu-jitsu to be as good as it can be. So let me know in the comments like what you think with regards to like potential competitors at the top of the sport. Who should we be excited about? And then let me know what you think about UFC BJJ as a show. What could they do to try and make it more exciting? And I'm not having it that like jiu-jitsu can't be an exciting sport and spectacle and get eyeballs on it. I live in the UK, right? A huge sport on TV in the UK, particularly around about Christmas and New Year, is darts. Guys throwing a bit of metal at a board, right? The reason darts is so popular, and we're talking about millions of people tuning in to watch it, which is like super impressive in this day and age with TV ratings where they are. But they're great in creating stars. The events have an amazing atmosphere. The actual format's really good. It's exciting. It keeps you on the edge of the seat. Like, they've just nailed all the things you need to have to make the event interesting and exciting. So if darts can be as popular as it is in the UK, going around selling out venues like the O2 and other big arenas that are indoor in the UK, I think jiu-jitsu can do better. So you let me know what you think about that. The show itself, like I said, Mikey, nice submission in the main event. Carlos Enrique, fair play, top pressure, really, really good against Mateus Gabriel, who's awesome off his back. Loves a berimbolo, couldn't get anything going. Carlos Enrique used the bowl really well, kind of stifled Mateus Gabriel on top. Samuel Nagai, great job against Kennedy Maciel. Really like the speed of Sam's movement, his dynamism. Kind of same for Cassia Mura and her airborne guard passes. And then Jansen Gomez gave us one of the highlights. If I was UFC BJJ, I'd be putting this out there and really like highlighting this highlight of Jansen's takedown off the bowl where he kind of ran Gustavo Batista up it. He's a guy that I would be hyping, coming in with his pedigree, beating their likes of Tynan Dalpra in the past, having like exciting movement. I think he's a guy that they could hype, that they could get some excitement behind. And I love the fact that he's now doing no-gi, and I hope I see more of him in the future. But the fact that like I don't think they have maximized the hype around him kind of shows the problem. And then there's another thing. The next event coming up has William Tackett against Ronaldo Jr. I think as a match, it's like a good match in itself. No William. William came over, competed in the UK on Grapple Fest, taught a seminar at SBG Aberdeen where I train. Lovely to meet him. Spent some good time showing him the area. I've talked to him a little bit since he's been on the podcast. So obviously I'll tune in to watch William compete, and watching him compete's always great, fantastic jiu-jitsu. But like, where was the hype around that match? We didn't get it. Just a graphic appeared on the screen that they were going to face off against each other. We saw, I definitely saw Ronaldo in the crowd. But where was the face-off? Where was the microphone time? Where's the storyline behind this match? And I think another thing on UFC BJJ, they seem to think by just putting two guys in a match and putting a belt on the line, that's enough storyline. And I don't think it is. You let me know if you think it is. I don't think it is. I think they need to be doing a bit more to create some hype. I think with the guys they've got, like I said, Jansen's marketable. Mikey is marketable. I just don't think he is to the level that maybe they do. And the Tackett brothers, I think, are very marketable. But they need to be doing more to promote these guys. Just putting their names on the poster isn't enough. So that's like a quick run through of the UFC BJJ 3 event. You can let me know in the comments what you liked about the show, what you think people should zoom in on the show and have a look at if they've not seen of it, if they've seen it. Who stood out to you? What matches you think the people that stood out should be having in the future? But like in the bigger picture, what are we going to do about this huge hole that currently exists in no-gi grappling, created by the absence of the two biggest stars in the sport, Gordon Ryan and Craig Jones? Come on, guys. Let's put our heads together. Get into the comments. Let me know. I'll try and reply to as many comments as I possibly can. And let's collectively, as the community of people who watch these events, try and come up with some ideas to replace that big vacuum that currently exists with no Gordon and no Craig. Tune into a future episode of the Jiu Jitsu Oracle. The next one should be us, Callum and I, starting to preview the Quintet event that's coming up later in October. And what we've done is we've created some dream teams that we would love to see in a quintet style event, dream teams from the past. And the first dream team that we're talking about is the Danaher Death Squad. So who makes our all-time Danaher Death Squad? That's a future edition of the Jiu Jitsu Oracle, and it's probably going to be the next one that comes out. So like and subscribe and follow to make sure you get it when it comes out. And hopefully it's a discussion that you are interested in and will get involved in. But for now, let me know about this star shortage in Jiu Jitsu. What can we do about it?